My name is Jerry White, and I brought in the short sword. It was given to me by a gentleman that we just called the General.
On December 21, 1978, after years of violent offences, Vietnam invaded Cambodia to overthrow the communist, genocidal Khmer Rouge regime. The Vietnamese army's motivations were complex, partly driven by its duty to end the humanitarian crisis, national interests in its disputed territories, and the need to extinguish hostilities at its borders. The initial battle ended with the Cambodian administration being transferred to Cambodian dissidents known as the People's Republic of Kampuchea, which started multinational clashes over Cambodian representation in the UN. In the end, the Khmer Rouge maintained its seat, further isolating the PRK from international support. On October 23, 1991, the United Nations brokered the Comprehensive Cambodian Peace Agreement to initiate a democratized, humane, and free Cambodia, putting bloodshed and civil war to rest.
Welcome Jerry White, retired Canadian Royal Canadian Naval officer and RCMP officer, to the program. Jerry, I was wondering if you could tell us what you brought in today.
Sure, Kevin. Thanks for having me. Somewhere along the way, I managed to get involved in some United Nations work and NATO deployments, and on one of my UN deployments to Cambodia, to the killing fields, a long, long time ago, we were unarmed. Everybody else was armed, which is a little unnerving. But it was given to me by a chap that we simply referred to as the General. We don't know if he was KPNLF or Khmer Rouge or even Khmer for that matter, but I believe he was. And he gave me this. I think he gave it to me as a token of respect.
Certainly.
It's very unique in that it is it's just forged out of a piece of steel. It is engraved, and it has the markings on it of Angkor Wat, which is their national treasure in northern Cambodia. Somebody sat down and engraved it, and they made it probably to impress the General. If closer examination, you'll notice that everything is hand-tooled, hand-machined, and all of these little, it looks like scrimshot, looks like decoration, is actually rivets that go right through the handle. And of course, everything is made out of rosewood and mahogany.
The Khmer Rouge, again, you well know this, rises up in 1968. They begin a civil war with the Cambodian government. They have a sort of non-aggression pact, I guess you could almost say, with the North Vietnamese, in that they're both fighting Americans, so they're not going to fight each other at that point. Again, this is the same time period that the Pathet Lao rises up in Laos as well.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And then with that, Pol Pot's idea is, it's right up there with Adolf Hitler's, is they want to return Kampuchea. They want to return it back to the glory of the Khmer Empire.
To an agrarian society.
Yeah. This sort of insanity of Pol Pot and this desire to create like this, fantasy world that he's going to bring back a medieval Khmer Empire and this supposedly idyllic way of life. And you're quite willing to kill half the population, your countrymen, to do it.
But my interpreter, Cao Van Son, had been a patrol boat commander in the Cambodian Navy, and he stole a patrol boat, a Russian Stenka-class patrol boat, and he filled it full of just over 600 people, and he sneaked out in the middle of the night and headed for Myanmar and saved 600 lives. I was going to say we didn't play by the rule book, but there was no rule book, so it was pretty easy to not play it. But we would gain access, break into, such a harsh term. We would gain access to the UN supply depot, and we would get Quilata lotion, which is used to wash your hair and get rid of lice. We had a German field nurse, and Manfred would get tetracycline. And the two Philippine chiefs, Peña and Mendoza, would steal half a dozen cases of corned beef hash. And as we were going up the river, you'd see these little tiny paths about 6 inches wide where the ladies and the children came down to get water. So we would nose the patrol boat into the path, and the ladies would come down, and they'd size us up really quickly. So we would walk into the village, and children would come out. And one of us would scrub their hair with Quilata lotion, Manfred would give them 5 international units of tetracycline because, regrettably, many of them were born with venereal disease.
Yeah.
They had no control, and they had never known what it was like to go piddle without screaming. So Manfred would give them 5 IUs of tetracycline, or whatever it is they do, and then Mendoza would rinse the Quilata lotion out, and Pena would give them a can of corned beef hash. We could do a village of 140 kids in about an hour.
Well, Jerry, I can't thank you enough for coming in and sharing the story and the experience that the sword represents to you and your comrades that served on the mission.
You're very welcome. One of the greatest compliments, I suppose. My boss at the time, General Dallaire, and I were giving a presentation to Madame Louise Frechette, who was the Canadian ambassador to the United Nations. And she said, "What do you think makes Canada better at this?" I said, "We're not better at anything." I said, "But when we're on patrol and we see 100 children down in a ditch cowering in fear, some of them are bleeding, some of them are dying, none of them think they're going to see the end of the day, the other countries call their command headquarters or their national headquarters and request instructions." She said, "The Canadians just jump down in the ditch."
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
We just jump in the ditch.
Jump in the ditch. Yeah.
Fortunately, we could gain a lot of ground just because we were Canadians. Just because we were Canadians. We had to distinguish ourselves from other Caucasian nations, and once they realized that Canadians, these guys show up with cans of corned beef hash and Quilata lotion to get rid of the lice, and tetracycline to get rid of the poor children that are born with. But we also showed up with toys,